welcome to the latest of my deep dive videos. Today I'm going to explore one of the most momentous events of 2023, and it can also be potentially quite explosive. This is a T-square between Mars, the planet of drive, passion, instant gratification and ego identification, in an opposition with the tiny but powerfully potent Pluto, the planet of change, in the sign of Aquarius. But intersecting both these planetary positions exactly is Jupiter, the planet of hope, of optimism, of growth and of our higher spiritual purpose, but at 0 degrees in the sign of Taurus, where it arrived on the 16th of May. Why this is particularly friction creating potentially is because they're all fixed positions. The signs of Taurus, Leo, Scorpio and Aquarius are fixed signs and appreciate continuity. Now ironically, Pluto is very much about transformation and therefore evolving, and in the sign of Aquarius very much about our future direction of travel. But despite this, what fixed sign energy can do when we have competing influences is create tension because of a resistance to flex. And when you get pride in the mix, particularly with Mars in Leo, its most proud location, Jupiter in Taurus, very much about what we value, our particular approach to everyday money, but also our self-worth, and Pluto in the rather eclectic location in Aquarius, very much about the collective person kind. That is a very turbulent set of influences. This is because Mars and Pluto are the rulers of Scorpio, so very deep, intense, but also very much to do with desire. And of course, having Jupiter in Taurus, as it will be for the next year, can be very much about enjoying the good things in life. So there are some great strengths developing here, but also some potential tests. And that's what I'm going to be exploring with you. If you're a returning visitor, thank you so much for joining me once more. If you're new to this channel, it's great to have you with us. I'd be honoured if you would subscribe. Please click or tap on the bell notification symbol. This is very much a community, so please do feel free to share any thoughts. I try to interact with each one. And just before I go into this, and I am going to summarise how this is going to be for each of the 12 zodiac signs at its conclusion, you can get your free daily horoscope fired to your device each morning. I've been writing these for about 28 years, so I think I'm unique amongst the YouTube astrologers, so please see the link below for more. So this event started to shape up actually a few days before the 20th of May, because Pluto of course has been in a retrograde now, and it is going to invert into the sign of Capricorn on the 11th of June. Jupiter, as I mentioned before, has been in Taurus since the 16th of May and is nearly at 1 degree, but Mars arrives in the sign of Leo at 3:32 p.m. Universal Time, based on London as usual. And you can see from the event chart on the screen that the ascendant for this event is actually very late in Aquarius on the anaretic point. This is a very important point because it's very much to do with change and, wow, quite fated because we have Saturn in the first house. So all of our energy, collectively, our physical energy, can be affected by this event a lot. But you also see that Pluto is in house 12. That's very much to do with our psyche. And Pluto, of course, can reveal secrets. It's very much about what's been hidden. And it's possible that we're going to see more come into the open about sex scandals, anything to do with offshore taxation dodges, all of this kind of stuff, because Pluto and Mars are very much about finance. But you can see Pluto in the 12th house in Aquarius is asking us to think about how we are all evolving collectively, because it does seem that life is changing at such a speed of knots. But in opposition is Mars in house 6, very much about our physical world. So whilst we may, with Mars's support and help, focus on getting a bit fitter and being a bit more robust in terms of our everyday condition, what we eat and drink, so forth, the 6th house, which can be very good. And Mars in Leo is also brilliant if you're someone who's interested in performance, demonstrating your talents in some kind of way. It's brilliant for creativity. And if you are someone who's ever wanted to join a band, to sing, perform in some kind of way, then this is a perfect opportunity through to the 10th of July to really raise your profile. But Jupiter can help us to grow in the sign of Taurus in a very applied way. So Taurus is a slow-in influence for Jupiter, which can be a good thing. But one of the things we can be really tempted with Jupiter in Taurus over the next year is anything that's remotely gooey and calorifically yummy. So just be aware that those diet plans, despite Mars asking us to get physically fitter and Pluto asking us to embrace our psychological self, could be compromised by the fact that Taurus hosting Jupiter can be about really going for it when it comes to the good things in life. But you also see that Jupiter is in house 3, which is about ideas. So I feel the tension in a way that's going to develop in this particular relationship is because Mars in a way is counterintuitive in house 6, where it's very much more about being of service to others, whereas in Leo it really wants the total attention. It wants everybody looking at it. If you've ever met anyone who's got Mars in Leo, they do like a degree of recognition. Nothing wrong with that at all, but that can often, depending on the house number that it's in, say it's in house 5 or house 1, it's going to be someone who needs to share their talent. In house 6, this is more self-sacrificing, so that's interesting, and it can be about how we help others. But Jupiter in 3 is about our ideas and how we communicate them. So it's possible that when it comes to the financial situation, because Jupiter in Taurus very much about everyday finance, and of course we have the position of the North Node, we have Mercury in a very stable link with Saturn on this event. We also have Uranus and the Sun, all still, just in the case of the Sun, in Taurus. So this is really asking us to think about our resources, but the sign of Leo is very much about speculation and can be about chance and risk. And Jupiter squaring Mars can see us really going for it and being a little bit freer and easier with our resources. And I feel what Pluto is saying is just be aware of what the power of our moves can have as it plays out in terms of our longer term future. So if we want to force the pace with this fixed energy which asks us to make slow decisions, whereas Mars in Leo is very much about being very cavalier, buccaneering into situations at pace, I would say that this event is asking us to slow things down and not jump to conclusions. But the other thing, of course, is that Jupiter in Taurus can be about things that we gain from the earth, because it's an earth sign. So whether it's about oil, natural gas, whether it's about fracking, whether it's about the outflows of effluents into our water systems, Pluto in the 12th house, very much about water, we're going to find out more about the way that pollution has been working its way into our ecosystem, but perhaps secretively, not with our knowledge. And I feel that also, therefore, there could be some tensions around things like stocks and shares that are linked to energy. And of course, that's been a very contentious area over the last year, because initially triggered by what happened in the Ukraine, because a lot of energy was routed through Ukraine from Russia. But I feel that what's been revealed is how particular energy companies have a great deal of power themselves and leverage over ordinary consumers. And I think we're going to see a big pushback against that kind of power, and that is a good thing. Consumers need to vocalize the things that they're unhappy about, where people are basically capitalizing at our expense and hiding behind what happened in the Ukraine to actually ratchet up profits to an unacceptable level. And that can be true around food production as well. Jupiter in Taurus, very much about that, because Jupiter can be about distribution, contracts, international transfers and so on. So we're going to see some tensions here. Obviously old money likes to hold on to the way things have been, and I think Pluto's challenging that. We have Pluto in an opposition with Mars, which can be quite a warlike aspect. So are we going to see an intensifying of the conflict in Sudan, Syria, in Ukraine itself, or elsewhere in the world, which I think we've all been watching very carefully what's going on in Taiwan. So these kind of energies are very intense and they're very rigid, and it may see some very stubborn standoffs. But I think there is the potential for growth. There always is. And the Sun moves on the day following this event into the sign of Gemini and actually forges a quite brilliant link with Mars. So we have a sextile that's in place on this event as well, but it becomes more exact as soon as the 21st of May. But just be conscious that it is going to be important in any situation where we're talking to someone who has different values to us or a different approach, that pride can get hurt. So Mars in Leo, very much about pride. But I feel the power of Pluto in Aquarius is about seeing things deeper and understanding the long-term impact of people's behaviour or attitudes. And I think Jupiter, on its revolution through the sign of Taurus over the next year, through till the 25th of May 2024, is going to see some improvements. Despite recent interest rate rises, we are going to see inflation come down. We are going to see growth by the end of this year in a positive way, but there still needs to be a lot of shaking out. And I don't think it's going to be until next year before we get back to some semblance, not of normality, because I think we've been living in very strange times for a long time, but I feel that things will settle somewhat, but we're all still going to be coming to terms with this new financial reality, whether we like it or not. But in any personal dispute or argument or any conflict whatsoever, it's important not to get into a position where there are no flexible, retreatable positions. So stubborn standoffs need to be avoided in every one of our lives and in the wider world. Now, please stay with me as I go through each of the 12 signs to give you a flavour of what you can expect. If you would like to ascend above Zodiac astrology and understand what more serious astrology can do for you, if you give me 3 pieces of personal birth data of time, date and place of birth, I will provide for you your life roadmap report, which helps you to understand the patterns that have played out in your world so far, good and bad. You get a more intimate understanding of how to work with these better. But also, in my special package, you can get your 12-month forecast, which will give you searing insights for the months ahead. And it's totally unique to you. If you don't know your time, give me your date of birth and your place, and I'll produce for your solar package on the same principle, but just based on your sun sign, which I think is entirely valid. And if you really enjoy watching YouTube sun sign videos, these are very relatable indeed. Again, please see the link below. So Aries, what does this event represent for you? Well, Mars is your ruling planet. So moving into house 5 shares your fire triplicity. So Leo welcomes your ruler in a very fulsome way. If you have talents or creativity that you want to showcase, you have a gorgeous opportunity through to the 10th of July with Mars's help. But of course Venus is coming in too, and that means that this can be a very important phase right through to early October for you to really demonstrate to people your sense of attractiveness and allure. Now, with COVID and all the restrictions that were in place, it's been more difficult to socialise and interact. And then, of course, we've had the financial crunch. But I feel that if you can get out and mix and mingle, this is an influence that can be very much to your advantage. But the fifth house also represents chance. The French for good luck is bonne chance. So, chance and speculation, and Mars of course can be a very dynamic influence, so it's square to Jupiter in the sector of everyday money, could see you wanting to be a little bit more risk-taking when it comes to trying to build up your financial situation. What I would say though is that it is very important to be mindful of Pluto's influence on proceedings, which is asking you to think very much about your longer term future. So as usual, it's not a great time to speculate with anything you can't afford to lose. So if you do have some kind of opportunity that arises, especially through to the 10th of July, and you're not quite sure, I would err on the side of caution. Also, your generosity can be hyped by this particular set of influences, and it's great to be very kindly to those we care for. But if you encounter somebody new in a romantic situation and they bestow a lot of generous gifts on you, I wouldn't necessarily be swept away by that. It's important to appreciate the flattery and the attention that you may be getting, but also understand that what really makes a relationship work in the long term is shared values. And Jupiter is very much a spiritual dimension as well as to do with optimism and growth. So in house 2, your values are important. So even if you really fancy somebody, just take into account whether you could see this panning out longer term. Now, if you're in an existing relationship, there could be a disagreement over money, or if you enjoy spending money on a particular interest or hobby, and a partner is more anxious about your financial situation at the moment, that could provide some tensions too. Now, Taurus, for you, having Jupiter in your sign is going to be such an asset for you. And of course, it's going to be there right through to the 25th of May 2024. One of the things that Jupiter can do is bestow confidence on us and growth. So if you're starting anything new, I feel that Jupiter is a great portent for that. It's just that with Mars pitching up in your 4th house, that could make you a little bit defensive or irritable if somebody close doesn't recognise what you're trying to do. But Pluto, right at the top of your chart, could make you very ambitious, and that could see you want to push beyond any kind of doubting words or sentiments that are expressed. And quite rightly, I feel that Mars can give you a greater sense of determination to get the type of home you really want, for example. And because your ruler Venus is also coming in to support this sector right through to early October, some changes on that horizon are definitely possible, whether it's redecoration, whether it's some new furnishings, whether it's making your outdoor space come to life in a better way, or whether it is moving altogether. But of course, Pluto in the 10th house suggests you're going to need the support of people in influential positions. And one of the things with Jupiter in the 1st house, even though your sign slows down some of its more extravagant properties, is that it can make us so determined that we actually disenfranchise the very people we need to keep on board. So when it comes to your personal hopes, whether it's keeping family and emotional support in place or professional support in place, that's going to be essential in the weeks and months to come. So Gemini, Mars moving into your third house is very redolent of the energy of your sign. Third house energy is quick, it's dynamic, it's very nimble, but Mars is very impatient and thrusting. Now, a lot of sports people have Mars in the sign of Gemini or in the third house because it enables them to move around very quickly. So if you're someone who is interested in getting fitter, Mars moving into Leo is really going to give you a lot of encouragement through till the 10th of July to up the heart rate that you achieve. But Jupiter moving into Taurus is very much about philosophies, and it can be about spirituality. And with Pluto in an opposition to Mars in the third house, it's not just about the physical action and activity that Mars brings. It can also give you a greater impulse to express your opinion. And in an opposition to Pluto, that particular aspect, Mars opposite Pluto, can make people very strident. So across the third and ninth house axis in your solar situation, it could be that you find yourself in some very lively debates, perhaps even some quite big standoffs. So if you're someone who writes or enjoys tweeting, or you have your own blog or internet site, I think you're going to find yourself with a real desire to articulate your message with greater passion. That's the opposition between Mars and Pluto. But with Jupiter in the mix, it could be that you're going to get into some conversations that may in some ways be triggering some deeper psychological parts of your nature that may not be completely apparent at the time. So in other words, you could find yourself having quite a heated discussion and not really understanding why it's triggering you so much. And Jupiter amplifies, remember. So in this particular dimension, I feel for you, you do need to take care that other people are not seeing you as being dogmatic, wanting to dominate with your viewpoint. It's important to be collegiate and listen to what other people have to say. But if you're open to reading and listening to different philosophies and viewpoints, this could be a time of massive growth for sure. But if you're single, I feel that Mars in an opposition with Pluto suggests that someone could be drawn towards your intellect. And you might be thinking, nothing new there, Patrick. And that's right. You know, you are one of the most nimble communicators there is. And whether it's through your sense of humour or your viewpoint on situations, which can often be so terribly astute, that could be an opportunity to get chatting to somebody new. And I think this set of influences also points towards being almost perfect for internet dating, but I think we'd all have to accept that internet dating itself is not necessarily the perfect way to meet people, because of course you can meet someone, you can get on extremely well, and by the time you've got home with a smile on your face, they've had a message from someone else who's a bit nearer or a bit more their ideal, and that is a very difficult situation for people to deal with. And of course it does lead to some chaotic short alliances. So I would say that if you do encounter somebody, it could turn out to be great fun, but just be steered by what Jupiter may be trying to inform you, which is to listen to your deeper instincts and not just be guided by your intellect and viewpoints. Which brings us to Cancer. Now Cancer, you're having Jupiter in the 11th house of your chart is tremendously encouraging. It means over the next year, I can almost guarantee to you that you will build some new alliances. And perhaps you're also going to build the future you've always wanted, but you're not going to be able to get there without the financial support. Saturn's been telling you that over the last 2.5 years, and it may have been a time when you've really been conscious of a lack of inflows in terms of your resources that goes beyond, you know, the financial crisis. But one of the things that Mars in the second house and Pluto in the 8th house is going to give you is enormous determination. So if you need to really work hard to get that future you really want, you're really going to be prepared to apply yourself. Now, because you are a cardinal sign and therefore a leadership sign. It's nothing new to you taking big responsibility, but what Mars has been doing in the 6 weeks whilst it's been in your sign, it's been giving you a lot of opportunities to get the momentum going around the individual strands that are important to you. Now it's moved into the second house. You can start to see if these foundations will build up, if some of those ideas will really seed and the shoots of growth will start to emerge. But I think one of the things you could find yourself really compelled to do over the next few weeks is spend money on something that you find very hard to resist. Or will it be a person you find very hard to resist? Romantically, there may be someone in your social circle that you're finding actually very hard to ignore. Just be aware that Mars in the second house is potentially about instant gratification in terms of sensual pleasures. And I think that Jupiter in the 11th house is about your associations with others. So it could be that there is somebody who makes your pulse race, but if you're drawn towards them, how would it pan out if it didn't work out? I'm not saying that you should think about it totally cautiously and defensively, but just bear that in mind. You may feel that you're in such a moment that you just want to live in your senses, particularly if you are someone who's generally much more guarded. I think this set of influences gives you enormous drive to go for what you really want deep down. Second, 8th house, it's cravings. It can be a very addictive combination, especially if there is somebody that you're really fancying. In an existing relationship, however, if you see things financially very differently to a partner, that could be a bit of a sticking point in the weeks to come. Now, Leo, for you, having Mars pitching up in your own sign is a wonderful opportunity, because this is going to give your physical vitality a huge boost. But also, Mars going through your 12th house has seen some moods which have been hard to understand. So Mars going into your own sign really gives you a boost of physical raw power, and that's really lovely. Jupiter in your 10th house for the next year suggests that you can really reach for the stars when it comes to your goals and ambitions, and other people will become much more conscious of the talents you have during that time. But Pluto suggests you do need to work collaboratively with others as well. And Mars in the first house can be, I don't want to use the word selfish, it can certainly be a very single-minded location. And Mars in Leo can have a great need for attention. Now that's part of your nature anyway, certainly at the very least to be respected. But your need to draw admiration is going to be heightened right through till early October, because not just Mars through to the 10th of July, but then Venus in your sign is going to see you much more conscious of what makes you unique and different, and you want people to celebrate it. And if they don't, you won't be happy. So just be aware of that. If you feel that a partner in an existing relationship is not as acknowledging of your talents as you would like them to be, or even just how you look, that doesn't give you much attention or praise, that could become more of an issue over the next few weeks. But if you're single, I think this set of influences gives you a lot more conviction to get out and about. You're a sign that doesn't always find it easy to get things off the ground, but I think Mars in your own sign, Jupiter in the 10th, gives you much more drive, so that's exciting. Virgo, Mars moving into your 12th house is quite complex. It's going to be there for 6 weeks, and because Jupiter can amplify and exaggerate in the 9th house, it's inclined to do that even more. So I feel that if there are any sensitivities that are rattling around in the roots of your being, perhaps some issues that you feel that you've dealt with long ago, you may be surprised that they could be reactivated in some way. It could be that you feel that you've worked through some past hurts and upsets really carefully, and even though you may well be aware that they're still there, they may require a little bit more attention. And I feel that that could see you being a little bit more triggered by other people's insensitivity. One of the things that's lovely about your sign is that you do go out of your way to support others so much. But I think one of the things you're going to need to do over the next 6 weeks in particular is to support yourself. And Jupiter is asking you to free yourself from things that are no longer working. So because Pluto's in your sector of service and obligation, the inference is clear. You could find it difficult to toggle what you feel you need to do for yourself, for others, but also be free. Something needs to give. And because they're all in fixed signs, this could see some frustration and resentment building up, which needs to come out. And Mars can be a little bit explosive, quite frankly, in the 12th house. So if you find yourself getting uncharacteristically ratty or feeling at another time quite emotional, that is why it is. And the best way to deal with this is just understand that as human beings, however much we feel we may deal with issues, they can have an incredibly strong resonance right at a cellular level within us. So past hurts just may need a little bit more of a fresh look, and just work with them in a gentle way to see how you can ease up some of the legacy that may still be active deep within you. Now Libra, having Mars move into your 11th house is glorious, because this is your sector of social interaction, your future hopes. Having Pluto in the 5th house is about you, the individual, in this process. So for someone like you who can be a people pleaser, I feel that the thing you're going to experience right through to early October is an improvement in your social standing. Expect to be in demand. You're going to be finding that your popularity is really on an uptick. But where does Jupiter fit into all of this? Well, Jupiter in the 8th house is very psychological, and that could be something that you just need to be mindful of. You could find, for example, in existing group relationships, if there's somebody who tends to be a little bit restricting of your need to be a free spirit, you know, the kind of friend that always assumes that they should be going out with you on a night out, that kind of control, even if it's unintended, could be something that you push back on, to be honest. And even in a romantic relationship, you may find yourself wanting to have more time to pursue your own hobbies, your own social interests, and your own friendships, and not feel so penned in terms of the devotional side of the relationship, which is house 8, which is where Jupiter is. But in general, I think this is very exciting. If you're single, there are going to be opportunities that come in your way, I feel, to meet new people. If you're in that existing relationship, perhaps a little bit of time pursuing each of your individual interests will actually be like a real breath of fresh air for the relationship, and giving you more pleasure when you do spend time together. But one of the things I would say, celebrate the things you have in common rather than focusing on the things that make you different. Scorpio, now Mars moving to the top of your chart, the 10th house, is where it's the midday position, it's in the sunlight, it's getting all the attention. So if you want to do better in terms of your work, this is a marvellous opportunity. But your relationships are going to be very important. Your home and emotional relationships, the support structure, Pluto 4th, and who you're interacting with in terms of the intermediaries, your colleagues, perhaps someone you're working for on a contractual basis. And the way you reach out to people needs to just be nicely pivoted. So you're understanding their needs, but you're getting the recognition you feel you deserve. But important that in any business situation that you don't come across as wanting, or even personal relationships, that it has to be on your terms, that the control side of your nature is coming to the fore, which is possible with your 2 ruling planets in a tense opposition. Jupiter's asking you to let go of fear around not everything going exactly as you hope, and perhaps just taking a step into the unknown a little bit. And that can actually be really exhilarating, but it may mean that you need to overcome that part of you that does like to feel that you're not exposed, but with so much energy on this event in your sector of relating, I feel some good things can come for you. And perhaps what Mars is going to do is give you the extra confidence, whether it's professionally or personally, to take the first move. Sagittarius, Mars moving into Leo, is all about adventure, travel. It's very much in keeping with the energies of your sign, and of course Mars governs the second decan of the sign of Sagittarius, and Mars moving into Leo is very bold. If you've long wanted to do a world backpacking tour, the next 6 weeks will either see you heading off or really getting the plans very sketched out. But what you're being asked to do is be mindful of the communicational cycle, Pluto, but also your obligations to others. So Mars in Leo is very much about doing what you want, being the absolute free spirit. So this is what you were like when you were younger, where you really, liked to float around, and that was very exhilarating and exciting. And you may get a need to do that again over the next 6 weeks. But Jupiter's reminding you that there's no freedom without responsibility. You need to find the balance, which brings us to Capricorn. Now Mars moving into your 8th house is hot, and of course Mars is exalted in your sign, so you can be a very passionate person. And Mars in Leo is about desire, potentially, and the 8th house is where we get very close. But Mars, of course, is about our needs as an individual. So with Jupiter in house 5, very much about romance, and Pluto in 2, your values, how you shine in terms of your personality, but then how you get really close to someone. Ooh, I think this could be quite a sultry period for you, and if that is something that you would like, then you may really want to put your more cautious side to one side and go for it. But just be aware that the 8th house is very devotional, but Mars in this position can be very possessive. So in an existing relationship, if you want to be a bit more of a freer spirit, Jupiter in the 5th, and the partner wants you to be very applied to their needs, that can cause a clash. So I also feel that everyday money could be an issue in an existing relationship. It could be that your partner will criticise you if they feel that you're being extravagant, or vice versa. Now Aquarius, Mars moving into your opposite sign flags up a period of 6 weeks, but also with Venus moving on June the 5th into your 7th house and being in the sign of Leo through to September the 4th, an enormous window of opportunity around relationships of all kinds begins on this event. So it's how you use the energy. Mars in the 7th house in synastry charts between two partners can be problematic. Meghan Markle has her Mars in the 7th house of Harry's chart. Interesting one, that. So very assertive. So Meghan likes to set her boundaries. Nothing wrong with that at all. But the problem with Mars in the 7th house is it doesn't like to give way. It can be very competitive, and it can be a bit warlike. And of course with Pluto in your sign, if you're born early in Aquarius, you may find yourself being really drawn to someone, but there could be some politics around it. Or with Jupiter in the 4th house, maybe it's around a property matter or a family situation where you may find yourself really having to count to 10 if someone is proven to be a little testing. But Mars in the 7th house can be very good if you're someone who tends to be a bit wary about reaching out into the world, or you lack a little bit of confidence. I can really relate to this. Mars in the 7th house in Leo is going to give a lot of Aquarius people a lot more oomph when it comes to just connecting to others. But it can just need some careful marshalling too. Now Pisces, for you, Mars moving into the sign of Leo is really interesting because this is house 6, so it's about your physical vitality. If you recall, the event chart was at 29 degrees in Aquarius and 22 minutes, so it was only a few minutes away from being on in Pisces. So therefore the event chart saw Mars in the 6th house. So there is a sort of echo of that in your situation. Mars in the 6th house, great for working harder, getting fitter, getting more organised, streamlining your world, looking for a new job that suits you better, providing services for other people. But Pluto in the 12th house could bring to the surface some of your hidden insecurities. And because Jupiter is in the chatty 3rd house, it's easy to say things and promise things with that set of influences that then become a little bit of a problem to fulfill. So I would say be cautious about what you say you can do for others. Under promise and over deliver is the advice. Now, romantically, Mars in the 6th house could see you being a little bit picky. And if there are certain irritations that all relationships have, none of us is the best version of ourselves every minute of every day. We all have our moods, or where we're exhausted, or things just get on top of us. Just be conscious that you could be a little more niggly. Your nervous system can be a little bit more over or aroused. If you're spending a lot of time on social media, I think this would be a good opportunity to tune out from that a little bit more and go for some lively walks. Jupiter in the 3rd house, great for short bursts of exercise. The 6th house, Mars, great for getting fitter. But just be aware that whatever drives, whatever we do in life, it's how we feel very deep inside that's so important. Saturn's given you a crash course about that over the last 2.5 years as it made its way through the sign of Aquarius. But you now have Pluto here, which works in a very different and very, very deep state way, if you like. So just be aware of whatever you're thinking or whatever you're doing is driven by your deeper psychology. So the more you get to know your shadow side or the shadow side of others, the better you're going to handle this particular event. It's been a real pleasure being with you. Thank you so much for joining me. Please do like, comment or subscribe.